Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys joining me for today's video and filming the video driving in the truck today. I'm actually heading down to Lake Wheeler to the Toyota Series Championship, and I'm getting a little bit of a late start. I had a late night last night, didn't get to bed till late, so heading down there this morning and starting practice tomorrow at Lake Wheeler. But anyway, a couple days ago I did a video on the most overrated lake in the country, which was Lake Pickwick in my opinion. But today, a lot of people were interested in that, so I wanted to do a video on what I think are the 5 most overrated lakes in the country and why they are, and how a lake gets to be the most overrated lake in the country. So we're gonna get into that in today's video. Also, guys, just want to remind you, you may have heard me talking about the Black Friday sale going on at Tackle Warehouse right now. It's a really good time if you guys are wanting to buy some tackle or some gifts for the holiday. Super good time to do it with all the sales going on. I'll put my Black Friday link in the description if you guys want to use that link. It's a good way to support the channel, so really appreciate that. Okay guys, top 5 in my opinion most overrated lakes in the country, which in my opinion just don't even waste your time going there. It's like they've been overhyped, oversold. At one time they were all really good lakes, but I'll tell you what happened to them. So the first one, guys, is Grand Lake, Oklahoma. Now, Grand Lake and Table Rock Lake are my 2 love lakes because that's where I grew up and learned how to bass fish. You guys have been with the channel, you've heard me talk about it, but my mom and dad had a trailer house down at Grand Lake for 30 years, and it was only like 30 miles from our hometown in Joplin, Missouri. So I fished it for 30 years every weekend. I love Grand Lake, and it was awesome. Grand Lake was one of the best lakes in the country until the Chamber of Commerce and whoever is in charge of bringing the tournaments to Grand Lake ruined the lake. The worst thing that happened to Grand Lake, guys, was that Wolf Creek facility they put in, because between the Wolf Creek facility and all the lake managers or whoever's in charge of it, bringing every freaking tournament in the country there with no limitations, many just, come, I don't care how many, come on in. We don't care if there's 50 tournaments on the lake this weekend. We just want to make the money, bring it on in. And guys, it has devastated Grand Lake. Fishing pressure, especially tournament pressure on Grand Lake, has annihilated that lake. It's literally a shadow of itself from what it was like 30 years ago. And it's a shame because Grand Lake used to be full of quality fish, and it used to be full of a lot of different options to fish. And now, like any place else, it's a top-heavy lake that's dominated by spotlighting, and I'm just disgusted to see what's happened to Grand Lake. Now, another thing that's happened to Grand Lake, guys, is there's a lot of pollution in it. There's a bunch of turkey and chicken plants around Grand Lake, and they dump effluent and nasty crap in the lake all the time, and it creates all this nutrient overload and algae blooms and weird crap with the water quality. And these companies, they get the fines that they get is just a slap on the wrist. It doesn't mean anything to them, and they just continue to pollute. So anyway, guys, Grand Lake on my list of the top 5 most overrated lakes in the country. Now the next one is I've talked about this a little before, is Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee is another overrated lake, big time. And everybody's gonna say, Randy, you're full of it. They catch giant bags of strings down there, giant bags of fish. 30-pound bags are everywhere. Yeah, they do catch it, and you know why they catch it? Because 95% of the lake is dead. 95% of the lake at Lake Okeechobee doesn't have any bass in it because, again, all of the crap from the sugarcane plants and all the pollution in the lake and the nutrient overload, it has made the lake into a mud pit unless there's 5 or 10% of the lake that still has clear water. So you've got all these bass that are grouped up in a small part of Lake Okeechobee. And Lake Okeechobee, you're always fishing on top of somebody all the time, and it wasn't like that. Again, 30, 40 years ago, all you dudes out there that used to fish Lake Okeechobee, closer to 40 years ago, the lake was beautiful. It had vast fields of vegetation stretching miles out into the lake. Out in the lake itself, way out in the lake, it was clear. You had 3 and 4 foot of visibility 2 miles offshore, and now you've got this much visibility offshore. So again, man destroys everything they touch, and they've done that to Lake Okeechobee. So even though Lake Okeechobee has still got good fish in it, it's just literally a shadow of itself because all the good fish, like I said, have been reduced to one little small area on Lake Okeechobee, so that's what makes it so overrated. Now the next one, guys, is you hear me talking about this lake all the time, and again, I'm just disgusted by it. It's Table Rock Lake in Missouri. Table Rock Lake is another one of my, Table Rock and Grand are my two home lakes, and I have witnessed it. I've fished Table Rock Lake since 1969, and it was a freaking awesome lake from, the 60s all the way up into the early 90s. And starting about in the early 90s, like all the other lakes out there, you started getting this influx of way too many bass tournaments, too much fishing pressure, too many bass tournaments, overdevelopment on the lake. There used to be no houses anywhere on the lake, and now every hillside on Table Rock Lake is getting bulldozed down by a developer right now to put in a $3 million weekend home. So from that standpoint, you got the same issue with Table Rock Lake. You've got water quality issues, you've got overfishing issues, a lot of different challenges to the lake that sort of are like a common thread with the other ones. But Table Rock Lake, for all you guys like myself that have fished it forever and ever, if you take Table Rock Lake back in the 80s, the late 70s and 80s versus now, again, it just makes your heart sink of what's happened to that lake. And once again, so much of this stuff, guys, goes down to the fact that the local chamber of commerces or whoever it is that are responsible for scheduling and bringing these tournaments in, they don't give a crap about the sustainability of the lake. All they want is the freaking revenue from people coming into tournaments. That is something you see over and over again. And then you don't have, there's not any type of responsible oversight from like the water patrol or whoever sets the number of tournaments that can be on the lake, because down at Table Rock Lake, in the springtime, there might be over 1,000 tournament boats on the lake, and they need to reduce the number of tournaments that are allowed on a lake at a certain time of year or a certain day. Instead of like allowing 3 or 4 tournaments on a lake on one day, they need to say, no, you guys aren't going to do that. You're going to have to schedule your tournaments where we have one tournament day on the lake, and we got 365 days out of the year, so everybody doesn't have to fish during the month of April 5 or 6 tournaments. So that's another one there. Okay, the next one, guys, 2 other ones. We talked about this a little bit in the first video. I mentioned it, is Lake Fork in Texas. Lake Fork in Texas is I put it the number 2 most overrated lake in the country, simply because it's got this hype of this freaking awesome hog factory, which there's a lot of big ones in Lake Fork, don't get me wrong, but Lake Fork is a very difficult lake to fish. It's full of timber. Again, there's a lot of dead water in it. The fish use a lot of different type of cover there, and it's been my experience. I fished Lake Fork three or four different times, and I've got a lot of friends that have fished Lake Fork over the years. And like I said in my last video, guys, I can't tell you how many of my buddies that have went to Lake Fork that are good fishermen. They're not pros, but they're good bass fishermen. They fish buddy tournaments and that type of stuff. They know what they're doing. Every one of them, guys, every single one of them, they get all excited about going to Lake Fork and catching a big one, and every one of them come back and say, that place sucks. I don't want to go back to that place again. We didn't catch crap on that lake. And I've had a couple good days on Lake Fork, but again, given the hype that the lake has, overrated lake in a big way. Okay, finally, guys, the rounding out the list on the top 5 is Kentucky Lake. Now, we all know what happened to Kentucky Lake here. Sort of a combination of a couple different things. Kentucky Lake, like any other place, it's gotten annihilated by tournament pressure. Same type of deal. When you put tons of tournament pressure on a lake, it's different than like tons of fishing pressure, because tournament pressure is a high level pressure. The tournament anglers, since they know more about bass fishing, they put more intense pressure on a lake than like a recreational fisherman. But the thing about Kentucky Lake is not only you have a ton of tournaments there, you have a ton of recreational bass fishermen that don't fish tournaments. I mean, Kentucky Lake has probably got more bass fishermen that don't fish tournaments on it than about any lake that I've ever seen. And guys, they don't throw them back. I'm telling you right now, a lot of those dudes that fish Kentucky Lake that don't fish tournaments, they go in the cooler and they get filleted out. So you've got this combination of the delayed mortality from tournaments and the guys keeping them eating in there. And then you've got the Asian carp situation, which, you know, has caused problems there. And then Kentucky Lake, like I said, you always have these occasional floods that come out there, and it'll rip out any type of established aquatic vegetation on the lake, which is super important on that lake. And then the fishing sort of goes downhill. But Kentucky Lake, again, you know, one of the most overrated lakes in the country. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to run that by you, a fun little video. Let me know, give me know what you guys think. What's your top 5 most overrated lake in the country? So anyway, I'm heading down to Lake Wheeler. We'll talk later.